This podcast is part of the No Phony Podcast Network, the home of independent awesomeness.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of On the Road with Jim and Casey. With me, as always, James Morganti.
Let's ride, boys.
And joining us tonight is actor and model Dale Niehaus. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing good. Just try not to go crazy with all this being inside with this COVID-19 stuff, but overall, I'm surviving so far.
Yeah. So you're in Norman, Oklahoma now, right?
Yes, that is correct.
But you didn't grow up there, right? You're a transplant?
Yep. Transplanted here back in 2015 from Hoosier State, actually, Indiana.
Okay. And what took you to Oklahoma?
Well, basically what brought me out here is I had a couple of friends that lived out here in Oklahoma, and we liked the visits. We liked visiting out here so much that we decided to pack up and move out here to Oklahoma just on a whim, just basically not even knowing if it was going to work, but we liked Oklahoma so much we decided to move out here. And I only knew 2 people out here when I moved, and now it's like ungodly amount.
Yeah. Well, that's good, right? Making friends.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's amazing who you meet. Surprisingly, moving it's like over 10 hours away from Indiana, southern Indiana, where I lived at.
The only thing I know about Norman, Oklahoma, is that Jim Ross also lives there, the announcer for the wrestler, all like WWF, and now he's with AEW.
Oh, that's a fact I actually didn't know. That's really cool. I didn't know that he lived in Norman. Holy crap!
Yeah, he sure does.
Wow, man, that's really cool.
Yep. So growing up, what did you do like growing up as a kid? What were some of the things that you were into?
Well, let's see. Like I told several people before, sorry, I'm adjusting myself here. I grew up being a movie buff since before I could walk, so movies have always been my thing. And growing up being an only child in Indiana, when I was old enough to be by myself, a lot of times I'd have to stay home and do chores around the house. Like my parents would work like 10-hour shifts, so I would have to do their laundry. I'd have to do all kinds of stuff. And so what I would do to pass the time a lot is watch movies, play video games, and of course, to show my age is back when right after the Atari went off the market and the regular Nintendo came out. And so I was playing like Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda, Ghosts and Goblins, all that good stuff. And then, of course, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. And then also reading books. Loved reading Dragonlance and different things like that. And just movies was my main thing. And trying to mimic what I saw on the TV, which, depending on what it was, there's Charlie Brown. Oh, look, I saw Mom and Dad watching Aliens when I was 5. That was always a good thing to try to mimic.
Real quick, you're a Sega Genesis fan, so
oh yeah.
What Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2? Who's your go-to character? And it better not be Chun-Li with her Kyoken. Who's your go-to?
Oh man, gosh. Well, I always, of course, love Ryu. I mean, that was always a number one. But gosh.
What do you think? Whenever I talk this, I like to hear their version of when Ryu does his flying hurricane kick. What do you think he says? The pamphlet. If you guys remember, there was pamphlets that they said they wrote down what the words were, and it almost doesn't make sense. So each person has their own word for his flying hurricane. Obviously, his Hadouken. And then he has
right.
Shoryuken, but the spinning one is like a weird Tatsumaki Senryuken or something like that,
It was I never fully could understand what in the heck he was saying. Right. And so I don't know. It was just like almost complete gibberish. Man, I don't even know. I can't even remember what the words were, to be honest. I can't even remember. It's been that a while ago, man.
Japanese battle cries. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, they're wonderful though.
Yeah.
It's crazy that you remember that, Jimbo, that they were written down, that they actually had those words written down in the
Oh
pamphlet.
my God.
Yeah.
That I cannot believe you remembered. That's really awesome. That's something that I would have never remembered in a million. It's just that's pretty cool that you remembered that, though, man. I honestly, I'd completely forgotten about that.
I don't know what it was about, like the whole words coming out while they were performing a move, and it like stayed with me my whole life, where I would be like saying something in my mind while I'm doing it, and then I would have to like say it for like it would have to come out of my mouth. I'm like I was playing basketball, and I would have to do like a move. I'm like flying hook shot or something. You know what I mean? Like I would have to like. I don't know how it works like that, but
That's pretty cool, man. I like that you actually remembered that. That's actually really awesome, dude. That's awesome.
So, Dale, growing up, what types of movies and stuff were you into?
Oh Lord, man, I watched almost everything. I mean, I was a huge fan of growing up. I obviously loved the big action heroes like Stallone and Van Damme and Schwarzenegger. But I also loved like a lot of comedies. But the one film in my teenage years, which I could never, ever get enough of, was Highlander. Grew up a huge Highlander fan.
Nice.
The original one, of course. Then they had Highlander 2, which don't get me started on that one. But yeah, Highlander 1 was probably my favorite as a teenager that I always loved watching over and over again. There can only be one, you know?
oh, I was just gonna say that.
So,
Yeah,
is that how you then got like the acting bug then? Because you just were so into, like, did you act or anything when you were a kid? Like any in high school, in like a plays or anything in school or?
I did a couple of plays in elementary school, but growing up, I was a very shy kid. In fact, I had very big stage fright, and like when I had to get in front of the class and do a speech, I was sweating bullets, and sometimes I was scared to death to do it. And so, as a kid growing up, I honestly I didn't do a whole lot of that because I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. But I didn't really get the acting bug. I always had wanted to do it as a kid, but I didn't really get the acting bug until I moved out here and actually was in a project as an adult, 2016. So I was 35, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So what was that first role then when you started acting then on? Was that a play or?
Actually, yeah. The first thing I did was actually theater, and it was the play version of Fahrenheit 451, the book, and basically they had a local theater group in Norman, Oklahoma. It's like a community theater, and they had auditions at the local library, and my wife at the time had kind of talked me into doing it because she's like, be something fun for you to do. You really kind of enjoy kind of just being a goofball. Why not go out and try it and see if it's any fun? And I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a shot, even though I don't like being in front of people. And so I auditioned for the lead, and of course I didn't have enough experience at that time to get that one, but the director had me play one of the firemen in it, and then everybody pretty much had a backup role if they weren't a lead. So like at the end of the play, I was a book person, and so the rehearsals for that was completely nerve-wracking because I still had that fear. And then finally, it was one night that we did the play, and getting up on stage and then doing my small amount of roles I had in there, and then just the audience cracking up at one thing that I said and the look on my face. It was like adrenaline rush, just hearing that. And after that night, the acting bug just bit me. And then later that year in December, I was in my very first local film as a background extra, and it just has been like gung-ho, like 90 miles per hour since.
Nice. Going back to what you said earlier about like having the fear of getting up in front of people, I remember that in high school too. I hated it. I hated it, and my best friends would just bust my ass. I'll never forget. We had to do a project on like one of our hobbies or something like that. And when I was a kid, I built models.
Yeah.
And I really liked Mustangs when I was a kid. And I'll never forget Kelly Murphy, God rest his soul. He would always make fun of me like every time I saw him for like the rest of my life or the rest of his life. And he would go, "This is my Mustang." Like he said, like they made fun of me like for talking so monotone and like just being, like, and like I remember picking one up and a tire fell off of it. And it was,
You know what's funny about that is that, you know, Casey has, just like from being on this podcast with him and everything,
Yeah.
and I'm still new to this. I've never had stage fright. I'm like, guys, I'll do this, and then I get up there, and I'm like, okay, and I'm not nervous, but I don't. I just say gibberish the whole time because I can't speak anything correctly, and that's all the words are jumble word salads of just a bunch of nothing at the end of this. At the end of the day, but Casey has he actually has just like good words. He's like, oh, this is what I'm saying, and this is what I mean, and here you go. Here, like, it just comes out simple. And I'm like, okay, well, here's where it started. When I was 6 years old, I had this guitar, and then it turned into like this anthill that I had to, you know, got interested. And it's just something that never goes anywhere.
Yeah.
kind of like this podcast. So Dale, how did you then? Because like, I don't really know what happened for me, but after high school, I trained to be a professional wrestler, and then I like wrestled in. Well, I wasn't in front of very many people, but then like I did. It was sort of like acting, I guess. You know, well, you know, it's not real, so I don't really know like what I did, or I don't know. I was doing a lot of drugs at the time also, so that might have helped a bit. So like, what did you do to overcome like your like stage fear?
Well, for me, and I could say easily, it was like, you know, the whiskey always helps, but no, it was honestly just the more I did it. And it helped that when I started acting in film to do a lot of background work, because all I had to do was not say a fucking word and just walk in the background of a scene over and over and over again. And which, first time you ever do that, I mean, the first time you do it's cool, and then 10 takes later, it's like, God, really? But that's honestly just doing that, and then doing a lot of student films. But the being in front of a camera when you're doing a film is not near as nerve-wracking. I mean, it is, but because you don't have like 100 people staring at you at once while you're acting. So I was beneficial because I took a break between theater from 2016 until this December of 2017. So I had a little bit of time in between to not feel like I was about to crap myself on stage. And so it definitely helped, just repetitive, doing it over and over again to the point to where I was comfortable enough in front of camera that it was just like second nature. So that's honestly the best thing that did for me, was just getting up there and forcing myself to do it to begin with, to the point to where I did it over and over again. And I kind of also owed help with it a little bit throughout the years, because I do love getting up on and doing karaoke and local bars and stuff. And so getting in front of people doing that too, even though they're drunk and they really don't realize what the heck's going on, you can sound like a dying whale and they don't care. But that kind of helps too. So.
Sure.
What was your I see a couple of the movies that you're in. Oh, let me bring it up on here. Awake is your newest one. I was trying to find you in there.
That
in this,
the Wake movie was one of the ones which I need to go and update that, because there's some on there that I was just background in. That was one of them.
Okay.
And I think the scenes that I was in there, which one of them, the scene that I was in that which was really cool because I got to actually talk to John Reese Myers. It was where he was going around the side of a building and then ducking around like this corner. That one, I was hiding around the corner with him before the scene started. And so we were talking out there, and we had to talk like it was like 20 minutes or so. And so they would call action, and then I would wait like 5 seconds after he started walking, and then I'd be walking behind him. And then as he ducked around, I just kept walking. So that one was just a background, but I did. That was really cool though. Actually getting to talk to him on set though, that was a really cool experience.
So like as a person, you know, like obviously getting out there trying to get roles. What do you find is the hardest thing about? I mean, I don't know how many auditions you do, like a month or whatever. I'm sure you're out there pushing a lot. What's the most like stressful thing about that? Like about going for auditions, and like not even that. Like, do you kind of see something that you like where you're like, ooh, awake, a guy, he becomes awakened with. I just learned this word, intraoperative. Like, what do you like the stuff you're going for? Or are you just like, let's do it, man. What's this movie about? Math? Okay, all right. I know algebra. You know.
That was pretty good. Anymore, it kind of depends. I mean, I try to obviously, I'll still try to submit for a role if it's a bigger project that kind of fits in my dynamics of like age, and you know, obviously I can't play a bald-headed black guy. I don't think that's going to work out too well. But you know, I mean, as long as the age and dynamics is, you know, I'll still go out for roles even if it's not like a dream role that I want to do. But I do seriously try to reach out for, if I see a role that I really, really want, I will let my agent know and try to get in and submit for it and get the audition, which it's a numbers game. I mean, a lot of times you're submitting for 100 roles and you may get like 5 auditions out of those and then maybe 1 role of that. So, but yeah, I'm out there constantly, you know, having my agent submit me for stuff. And then every so often, poof, there's an audition. Cool. And then I submit for it and just hope for the best. But yeah, I always try to go for roles that I really like, but a lot of times, sometimes it's just roles that, hey, it's a paycheck. So sometimes that's how that works too.
Right. What kind of modeling do you do? Like, how did you get into that? And yeah, like what kind of, like, is it clothing? Because I see a lot of, you can model at any age in your life, right?
Yeah.
I did some for my friend's clothing store. I was living in Austin, Texas for 2 years.
Nice.
I'm back in Pennsylvania now, and I did just like Instagram and like their website.
Yeah.
I modeled some of their clothes for them, and it's a great little company, Uptown Cheapskate. Anybody down in Austin, go check them out. Great little store. But
Nice.
but so it made me like see, because like I have grays. I color them sometimes. You know what I mean? Like obviously I love aging. Getting older is a gift to me. But
Right.
also it made you see, like, when I was a kid, I always like working out and everything. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I could be a model. I'm not big enough, or I'm not ripped enough, or built enough, or good looking enough. But now I see it as, you know, there's like guys in their 50s and 70s that are models for magazines and ads for wearing a suit for, you know, older gentlemen.
Right.
Did that take you like, so how did you get into like modeling, and what was your?
Well, honestly, a friend of mine, this is like maybe 6 months after I started acting, maybe close to that. He had me come out to his house because he was like, man, I just want to practice my new camera. And he was still learning quite a bit. And so he was like, hey, come over and just let me take some pictures of you for blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, sure. So I came over and let him take some pictures, and he's like, man, you've got this look, man. You could be a model, I swear. And first of all, I thought he was just BSing me, okay? Because I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. You're crazy.
All right, buddy. We got there it is.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you, buddy.
All right, guys. Okay.
All right, so we lost you at. We lost you at.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We lost you at. Basically, you're telling us you have a look, right? And that's all it is, guys. It's not, you could be the best looking guy. You could be so much better looking than everybody. I mean, and if you're just like there, like if you just like don't have a look or something that makes the camera like grab your face, you're just not going to make money being a model. You have to have something. That's what I learned. Like my face always looks stupid when I model. Like I hate it. And like, not that I did it professionally, but it was semi-professionally. And I like, out of 100 photos, I'm like, okay, use these 5, you know, because all the other ones, like it's tough.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me make a point out to you. Make sure if you go outside to sit on the porch, your phone is charged. That's also a good thing. My phone died on me, so that's what happened. Okay. So I got my kids over here. But yeah, I was going back in my friend's backyard, and he was taking pictures, and he said, "You've got a certain look." And so I started after that. I'm like, why not? What can it hurt? And so I started working with local photographers around Oklahoma. And at first, I didn't know what I was doing, so I had to research it. And then before I know it, I started working more. Then more started after that. Then 2017, I was in every year in Oklahoma and down in Tennessee. They have a PhotoCon event. And it's where photographers come from all over the country. And usually, I know in Oklahoma City, Bedford Camera actually host it. And they have photographers come all over the country. They have models that actually will be out there that will actually model for the photographers to take pictures and to show like, hey, this is how you do this lighting, whatever. And so I started networking with more photographers that way. And then as this and that, it kept growing. And so pretty much that's how I got started modeling. It was because of a good friend of mine had said, "Hey, you've got to look." And I decided to step out on a limb, because before that, I've always had growing up, I had a self-conscious thing about my body. And I always, thought that I was a heavier guy. I was not, not good looking or any of that, And so I never in a million years pictured myself being a model or even an actor. And then come to find out anymore, it doesn't matter the size or anything in that, because you can be any age, you can be any size, and you can be a model. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is what a lot of people don't realize, it's confidence. You show confidence, you have confidence in yourself, and believe me, it shows on the camera. And if you have confidence, it's going to look amazing.
For sure. That's the most, I mean, it sounds like you're just standing there and you're like, no, you're not, it's not just a bunch of people. Oh, you're a model, so you don't do anything. You just stand there for a while. Can you hold this? Like, do you know when something is called for in modeling? You know what I mean? Like doing this. That's like
sit there and stand like a tree.
It's hard to like get having a background and all these things happening.
Oh my God.
And you're outside in front of like some sort of maybe brewery or ice cream factory. And like you have to be in the scene of what you'd normally be doing, because you can't, it's so hard, because my hands are always like this. I'm like, what can I do? Go-to move for anyone out there trying to be a model. I realize this: bracelet play. Oh, my bracelet's just a little tight. Let me fix it. The bracelet play is a good one.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about your acting.
Sure.
Being that you're in Oklahoma, when people think about movies and acting and everything, it's usually like New York or California. So how do you go about getting a role? Like, let's say your agent gets you a role or an audition or something that's in California. Do you send a video, or will you fly there, or how does that work?
Basically, well, I know a lot of times before all the COVID-19 came out, if there was roles out in LA or California, a lot of times you still have to go out there in person. And so, yeah, you may have to fly out there. Occasionally I've known people that have went out and stayed for, let's say, pilot season. They went and stayed for a month or something out in California to audition. But nowadays, with the way COVID-19 is going on, they're pretty much doing video auditions. And so you can be really anywhere in the country if you have an agent, and say if there's a project that's going to be filming in Ukraine or in England or in Minnesota or wherever. You can do a video audition now and actually have that submitted, just because you really can't go anywhere in person. And so now it's a little more convenient. Now, before, yes, a lot of times let's say if there's a bigger project, the first round you might be able to send a video audition in, but like there's many times where I have a Texas agent and I've had to drive down to Austin from Norman, which is a good 6-hour drive, and 5 hours, something like that. But I would drive down there to audition for 30 minutes and then drive straight back.
Wow.
And so that's like a 10-hour drive, like one day, just to audition for a role. And 9 times out of 10, you don't get it. But I mean, I went and auditioned for a commercial once, national commercial, drove down there one time. Then I got a call back to go again. And it was down to like 3/4 of the people were eliminated. And so I got called back to audition again. Didn't get the role, but it was a really good casting director down there that my name is now on the radar. So sometimes even if you don't get the part, it does pay off because you get your name out there. But yeah, right now it's really more convenient because you're pretty much only doing video auditions. So it's definitely very helpful.
Yeah. And you had mentioned that like the movie that Jim said, Awake, that you were just like an extra in that. Are there what are some of the movies? Do you have bigger roles in some other, like you said, you mentioned that you were in some student films and stuff like that. What can you tell us about that?
Well, there was a project that's finishing up really soon, and it's a supernatural series called Honey Jessica, and it's going to be on some streaming network. It's still in negotiations, but it's also going to come out on DVD later in November this year, and I believe the fans of True Blood are going to get a real kick out of it, because it goes along the same lines of having supernatural creatures and having a main character who obviously realizes that, hey, there's weirdos out there, and so that's a pretty big project that I am involved on. That hopefully, if it takes off like it is, it'll be 9 seasons. That'd be great. And then there's God, there have been so many student films I've been a part of. It's hard to keep track of those, but there was a project actually I went out to Illinois for, and it's actually a sci-fi horror film called Hunter A. And it was done by a rock group that actually has traveled all over the country, and that one's a pretty big, decent project. It's a feature. And basically it's about this guy that's basically put through some experiments and basically is this hunter and ends up fighting demons. And so it's like a post-apocalyptic, and basically it's like these things have taken over Earth. And so he's basically like, has no memory at first. And so that was fun because I got to actually play an Army colonel in that one, and basically kind of in control of like the whole thing. And so that was pretty cool. It wasn't a lead role, but it was kind of cool getting to play because I'm former military. And so never being an officer before, it was kind of cool actually getting to play like a full-blown colonel in that. That was actually really awesome.
Yeah. What branch of service were you on?
It was National Guard.
Okay. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
So do you have like a regular job too, or is it just all acting?
I'm not full-time acting yet. It's getting closer to that point, but no, actually I work a full-time job. I actually work for Oklahoma City, the city of Oklahoma City out there in the water department. And actually I read water meters, so it definitely keeps me active quite a bit. So even during this going on, there were still essential workers. So we kind of still have to go to work. But a lot of times for the stuff that I've had taken off for, it's been vacation time, just taking time off to go act or different things. Or if I'm lucky enough, it's on weekends, which a lot of student films usually, that's the good thing about student films. A lot of times they can do their projects around your schedule. So like let's say if everybody can't do a certain scene until Saturday, then they can wait to do it till Saturday. So It's getting to the point now that I'm getting more work lined up that I may very well be able to leave the full-time job later this year. But yeah, I still, like most of us out here working actors, working basically means we still have a job to help supplement our income.
Yeah. What do you like better, stage acting or acting in film?
It's kind of a toss-up, actually. I prefer film just because I love being to just I don't know, it's the whole thing, because if you forget your line, they can yell cut and actually like redo it. But I love stage acting just because it challenges you to where you're going. You have to dedicate like 2 months out of your year to rehearsing and then actually doing the productions, because a lot of times they'll do at least 4 weekends or whatever, unless it's a big Broadway play, and then it's obviously a lot more than that. But you're dedicating because then, like I said, you got to rehearse. So you're going 5 days a week, 4 hours a night to rehearse for a play, and for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then, of course, the productions. And also with doing the stage acting, if you forget your line in the middle of the scene, you have to keep going as if it's just intentional, because it's obviously the live audience that are going to see it. And if you stop and all of a sudden and you're not saying anything, it's going to be awkward looking. But also, too, you get that instant gratification, like the reaction. So, like if you say something funny and the audience really loves it and they laugh out there and you can hear it, it's like an energy building up, and it's like an adrenaline rush. Same thing with if you do a serious, like a moment in a play, a dramatic role, and the audience is speechless. And then at the end of it, they cheer and they clap, and it's amazing. Or it could be the opposite effect, where the audience didn't like it and you just hear crickets. And it challenges you too, because it challenges you to where for reaction. Like if like some audience is booing or whatever, it teaches you control too, because then you keep going on with what you're doing no matter what the audience is doing out there. Because in a play, basically it's like there's nobody else there. It's like you're living in that scene, and and you can't even like act like they're there. So it's really cool. Both of them are, but honestly I prefer film. I actually prefer being on camera on film.
What's your ultimate dream role? Like, do you like being like a military sergeant, yelling at people, berating them, breaking their spirits down, and then building them up later? Like, you're like the tough military guy in the beginning of the movie, but then in the end, like the end of the movie, like the young kid hero is like, oh, he was right all along. Oh, what's your best, like your dream role, that something that you believe in that you would want to really land? Some type of movie, like character or something. I mean, I'm serious.
Let me see. One thing that I've told a lot of people, which that would be cool to be like a higher rank, like to be like a grunt, a sergeant or something, to be a hard ass at the beginning and kind of like lighten up towards the end, or like, they realize it's almost like kind of like Mel Gibson's character in We Were Soldiers. But the dream role that I would love to play would be the head of a mob family, and a serious, like a mob, like a gangster film. Because I did a 48-hour film competition where I did play a head of a mob family, but it was kind of a slapstick comedy, which it was fun. But I would love to be in a serious mob role, just because of the whole having like that control aspect without like being like screaming. It's just like that whole like darker, like serious sounding in your voice, and then just kind of like kind of acting all serious, like everything's okay all of a sudden, and then you whack a guy. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
But when you're acting, are you of like the mentality like, let wardrobe do the acting? You know what I mean? So you're dressed the part, but it's almost like you're going to be who you are in that character. Or do you have more? I forget what actor said that. It was some old, I want to say like Jack Nicholson or somebody. But it was basically, I'm going to be myself as this character, instead of acting like the character in a way. So when you said the confidence is the thing that has to come through, you're almost, you're dressed up like a mobster. You're dressed up, this way, but you're still going to be confidently your personality in that character.
Yes. Yeah, in every role, every role that I've been in, I've noticed too, because at first when I did it, I just tried to act, and the camera will always notice, an audience will notice if they'll see if you're acting or not. And to tell who's a really good actor that honestly does a role really good is when you watch them, you don't think they're acting, you actually think they're that person. And so, yes, when you're acting, let's say if you're playing a serial killer, which, I mean, hopefully nobody is in their mind really a serial killer, but when they're playing that role, parts of themselves will actually come through on that, because when you play it, you want it to feel natural. You want it to come through natural. And so it's almost like you're not a mob boss, but you're a real person. And so when you're playing that, it's almost like it's you're that person. You're not actually a role.
Mm-hmm.
And because, yeah, like I said, the camera will see everything. And if you're on there, like, acting a role out and you're like, yeah, go kill that guy, yeah, that's going to look horrible. But if you're like, hey, go kill that guy, it just, the more natural it feels and comes out, the better it's going to look.
Right. Awesome, man.
Dale, I have a question for you about your acting. How
Sure.
do you go about remembering like your lines and all that? Like is there, for the stage acting, do they have cue cards or anything like that? Because I mean, it just seems like it's a lot of things that you would have to remember, especially if you have like a main role.
It can be, yeah. Sometimes they'll do cue cards, which I think a lot of times it's up to the actor to do that. But like a lot of times what I'll do for like a film, and I've got like a huge script, first of all, what I'll go do is I'll go through the script and I'll highlight all of my lines. And then what I'll do is I'll break down each individual scene. And usually the best thing what you can do is make little side notes like keywords, like for that, like maybe a certain line, you have like certain keywords in there. That way, as you're reading them, you kind of notice that keyword that comes out. And so when you're talking, it's easier to remember the lines. But I mean, the main thing that I notice is because there was one time that I was rehearsing lines, or I was memorizing lines, and I was just focusing on memorizing it. And it was for an acting class. And so I went up there after I memorized the lines, and then the teacher was like, okay, say it this way instead. It threw me completely off. I was like, I was completely frozen. And so they were basically teaching us that don't just memorize the lines, but live in the moment. So if you have to say like, a line like, hey, I went up to the store that day to buy oranges or whatever. Well, you may in your mind think, okay, I'm just going to say I'm going to go up to the store and buy oranges. Then your teacher may be like, or for the scene may call for it to be more like upsetting or something, like, I went up to the store and bought oranges. And so if you just think in that mindset of saying it a certain way by memorizing your lines, you may get redirected to say it a little different way and you're completely thrown off. So the best way to do is, yes, you need to memorize your lines, but you also need to kind of picture in your mind what that character's doing. Like, okay, the character's going to the store, they're getting oranges. What were they doing previously? See, there's always a life to the story before and after the scene. And so you have to get in your mind the mentality of what's the character doing before? What are they doing during the scene? And then what are they doing after? So you kind of research, like reading the script before your lines and after, so you kind of have an idea of what's going on in the story at that time, and it makes it a whole lot easier to memorize.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to do any accents or anything?
Yeah, I've had to do a few. There was this one, it was like a play that I did. It was like a play that had musical artists on it. And I had to do, of course, doing like the Southern, like the backwoods hillbillies, like really easy, kind of talking like this a little bit, but then there was one I had to play like, it was like a white Jamaican. It was really weird. So I had to learn how to do a Jamaican accent, which was really weird, but it was kind of cool at the same time. And and then also doing a little voiceover work. Yeah, I had to learn to do kind of few, like Russian. I was able to do a Russian at one point. and so and then doing some different character voices. So yeah, I've had to do different accents before in film, and it's really cool experience because if you have to do like a certain accent for a role, you got to research it first. You can't just go into it and all of a sudden like, okay, I'm going to do a Hispanic guy or a Hispanic accent or anything else. You kind of have to, where a lot of times I've watched YouTube or went on there to research and to hear how somebody talks, and then I start to try to mimic it. And that is probably about the best thing that I've learned so far. And then of course taking voice classes too. That always helps too, dialect classes.
Okay. Just a couple more questions here before we'll let you get back to your kids. Are your kids interested in like following in their dad's footsteps at all? Or I'm not sure how old they are, but
actually I have 3 kids. One is 17, the other's 10, and then the other is 7. 7-year-old, not really so much. He's, not really his thing, but the 10-year-old and the 17-year-old, yeah, they've been in some stuff with me actually.
Oh, cool.
The 17-year-old's been in a couple of movies, and the 10-year-old has actually been in some movies, and he was in a play with me. The second play I did as an adult, it was in 2017, December. It was at the Sooner Theater in Norman, Oklahoma, and it was the production of Oliver, play version. And in that, he just was one of the workhouse boys, or like the orphanage kids. And in that, I played Mr. Brownlow, Oliver's adopted grandfather. And so that was interesting because we all did our own makeup. And in that, I had to go, because I went back and forth between that and then being like this ensemble in the background. So at one point, to make my hair even grayer, because I actually had hair on top of my head at one point, surprisingly, I took baby powder. And I would actually sprinkle my hair and my beard, and I'd make it all like white and stuff, and I'd like paint my face up a little like duller, so I looked really like old and crusty. And I had lines too. It was really cool looking. And then when that was done, I had to hurry back down because usually it was doing that scene, and then I'd go be an ensemble. I had to go back down, clean all that off, and then I had to like get rid of the white that I had down here and completely do a whole different makeup job. So luckily for my 10-year-old, he didn't have to do all that stuff. It was real easy for him. But yeah, they like doing the acting. I don't have them do it on a regular basis because they're kids. They've got other stuff they like to do. But occasionally, if there's a project that somebody I know is having, local usually, and I'm like, hey, do you guys want to be in this? And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? And so yeah, they occasionally like doing stuff with me.
Cool, very cool. So before we wrap it up here, where can people find you? Are you on Instagram, Twitter? Do you have a website, anything like that?
I am actually, the main 2 places you can find me is actually 3. IMDb, it's just Dale Niehaus. That's on there, and you can see my bald, gleaming head, which the light's hitting you right now, so it really looks shiny. Then you can also find me on Facebook as under Dale A. Niehaus. And then Instagram, I came up with this tagline because it's kind of the motto I live by. It's helping others is the greatest.
Sounds good, man. Well, we appreciate you doing this, man, and good luck with everything. And
I appreciate it.
Sure, we'll talk to you along down the road.
Oh, I'd love it, guys. Definitely. Maybe next time my phone won't die on me in the middle of it.
No problem, man. No worries. All right, man. Have a good night.
Y'all do the same, okay?
All right, buddy.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.